Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to today's stream. Thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited as always, and thank you so much. So, today we're going to talk about something that is really really important to me. It's uh it's something that I've heard a lot about like talk to me about in the email course, and you guys are like, "Hey, you know what? This is something that you should talk about," which is why I'm so excited. So today's topic is something very similar that all of you are going to face at some point in your careers. And it's like once you become a designer, the biggest fear a lot of designers have is presenting to executives. It's like, oh man, I have this presentation to this executive. What am I going to do? Um, what's going to happen? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to fire me? What's going to happen? And there's this fear. So I want to literally help you tackle that and help you overcome that so you can quickly, I would say, grow in your career, right? Move up. So that's the main thing that I would say is focus on what can we do to help you overcome that fear. So here's the thing. Many designers, they do amazing in their careers, right? They do amazing design work. But then when they've done all this work, they're like, you know what? I'm going to give it to my colleague or somebody else to present in front of the vice president, the head of design. See, the problem with this approach is you're afraid of presenting. Now, the person who presents this gets more of the credit. That's the problem. They get more of the credit. So now what ends up happening is because they get more of the credit, um, it's kind of they get the promotion opportunities even though you did most of the work. So essentially, if you were confident enough of presenting yourself to executives, or people talk about executive presence, like what should I say in front of executives and stuff, there's nothing different, right? The first thing I want to dispel is that executives are just people like us, right? They eat, they sleep, they drink just like us. It's no different. So when you start putting them on a pedestal, which I understand, like they're the head of design in your company and stuff, but when you start putting them on a pedestal, it kind of like you're not able to be yourself. You're not able to ask intelligent questions. You're always worried that what if I ask the wrong question? What if I say something and it's going to upset the executive? So instead, if you treat them like normal person, I mean, obviously you have to be smart. You can't just ask anything stupid, but you're just curious. Whenever I meet executives and around executives, I'm always very curious. Like, hey, what are some of the books you're reading, right? Like, for example, I'm reading this book right now, The Cult of V, right? I love reading books. I'm always asking people for different book suggestions and learning from this. So that's a question I ask to executives. So just being curious around executives makes a big difference, and that is something I want to convey to all of you. Is you can be curious, you can be yourself when it comes to executive presence. Asking some intelligent questions that goes a long way. But today I want to focus on a main thing is presenting to executives. That's something you'll do a lot as a designer. You'll be called into the executive's cabin, and they'll say, "All right, Jay Neil, go ahead and present. What do you have for us?" This freezes designers. This is where they're like, "Oh my God, the end is near. What's gonna happen?" It's not even close to that. The thing with executives, what I want to walk you all through is basically that with executives, there's a different strategy than when you're like presenting to like your colleagues and other people. See, with executives, they're short on time. You might get like a 20-minute meeting. If you're lucky, maybe 30-minute meeting is usually not like hour, 2 hour long. So the main thing I would say with executives is you have to be on point. You have to be precise. So what do I mean by that? So let me quickly share my screen and show this. So when you're presenting to executives, the big thing is you have to be very clear what is the goal of this conversation. So within the first few minutes, they have to know basically like why are we having this conversation? What are you presenting? So within the first 2 minutes, I let them know that hey, I'm presenting this design to you and show you how this design can help the business, how this design can lead to more users, more signups, how this design can increase the retention for the product, right? Um, Second thing, the second question that executives care about is the why. Show me the why. Whatever you're showing, whatever design, explain to them why this design is gonna actually lead to better outcomes. And another one that is very important presenting to executives is you have to be very clear about the context. What is your role? Essentially, what's happening is when you're presenting to an executive, don't expect that they know everything about the project you're in. Maybe they're just curious to know more about it. Maybe they're just figuring out what the role is and all these things. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that if you're presenting a project, don't just start like, hey, I'm going to walk you through the onboarding flow for this app. Here's how users sign up. Give them the context. Like, hey, in this project, we're focusing on user, how they sign up for the app. Give that context. Don't expect the executive to know what they're going to talk about. So the context has to be like right there with the goal of the conversation. Like, this is the context, this is the goal of the conversation, and then boom, show at a high level what's happening. So when you focus on these things, and also with executives, it's always they love metrics. So if you have numbers that with this design that we tested, we think that the design will improve, the signups by 10%. They love numbers, or it's going to save the company $10,000, $50,000, whatever that is. When you show these things to the point, boom, executives, you have hooked them. You've literally hooked these executives where they're like, all right, got it. This is what's happening. So the thing is, with presenting to executives, it has to be informational, straight to the point. Like, number one, what is the context? What is this project about? Maybe they have 100 projects they're seeing. They don't know what's going on. So from that context, you have to be very clear in terms of what to expect. What should they expect? Number two, why this design, this thing you're presenting, how is that going to help the company? You have to be very clear. You can't just be like, this design is so beautiful. It's, the best life-changing design that's out there. There's all these things, right? You can't, right? You have to be very, very clear. Like, with this design, it's going to help the business because of this, this, and this. Executives care about results. So you have to be very spot on to that. And then finally, number three, if you have metrics or numbers, please include that. So let me know, what questions do you have in the chat when it comes to like what fears do you have when, like, let's say you have to present to some executive of the company. Put that in the chat so then maybe you can answer that. Smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do subscribe because I'm going to keep doing this like every Friday and share more insights that I've gained through my design career. But my point is, there have been so many times where I worked with designers who did amazing work. And then what happened was I was working with this specific designer, and then they did all the work. But they were afraid. They were afraid to present to the vice president and a few other executives. So then what happened was they were afraid to present, and they said, hey, Janiel, can you present for us? And I said, sure. Now what ended up happening is when I presented to the executives were like, oh, that's amazing, Janiel. Why don't you take the lead on this project? So what ended up happening is I got all the credit. I got all the benefit, and it sucked. I didn't want it because, this colleague of mine did all the hard work. But the executives just saw my face as the one presenting it. So I know life's sometimes unfair, but my point is, if you don't overcome the fear which comes with presenting to executives, it's not going to help your career, right? So be very much confident. Push yourself to present to executives. And one tip that I'll give you is, if you're nervous about presenting to executives, present it in front of your colleagues, present it to your friends and family, just so you get comfortable. Like, hey, this is what I'm going to walk you through. Something I do always is, if I'm presenting to an executive, I show it to another designer, right? That, hey, I'm going to present this to the executive. What do you think about it? And they'll say, well, I think you should remove that. I think you should put this in there. Hey, when I was presenting to the executive asked about these topics, so I made sure it's in there. So I always do these like iterations, so this way I'm prepared. Chaman, you're right. we're learning a lot of things about the future that's going to help you. A lot of these things may not be apparent immediately, but they will definitely help you down the road. So with qualitative research finding, I think what you have to kind of understand is the executive you're presenting to, what is their intention for it, right? Do they, care about that? Do they know about that research? Are they interested in it? It's got to be tied into um, basically this idea that, hey, these are the top three insights we learned from this qualitative research that can help the company this way. When you tie it to the company goals, the executive has your attention, right? So you have to just present it not like, well, we noticed that 50% of the users want a background in blue color. Like, that doesn't go anywhere. It has to be like, well, 50% of the users want it to be this way. If we do it, it's going to increase our profits and stuff. So you have to tie it back to the business goals. And the more you do that, the better it's going to be. I think, Aman, I've done this stream before, like how to, I think it's more about public speaking, but in terms of like how to frame your presentation in a better way, I think a specific thing I can say is in this context for today's stream, which is about presenting to executives, it's got to be short and concise. You know what I'm saying? So what I mean by that is you can't just go on and on for an hour like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It has to be the point with exact data, stuff to back it up, right? So when I'm presenting to executives, I'm very much aware, like, how do I frame this presentation in a way that's helpful for them? And they just care about how to take this business forward, how to improve it. So from that perspective, when I look at things, I say, all right, what are the goals for this executive I'm presenting to? Right? So you have to frame your presentation in that way. So there's no generic rule like how do you frame your presentation in a better way? I mean, there are so many tips to design it better, but in terms of framing specifically, you have to know who's your target audience, which is this the CEO? Is it the director of design? Like, who is this person? And based on that, right? Based on that, you kind of like go further. So that's basically what I would say to you is understand who you're presenting to. And once you do that, then you can frame it in a better way. Great question. Is it better to have a take charge attitude or just sound humble? Well, what I do is somewhere in the middle. I don't try to like just take charge because it can come off arrogant. Also, I don't want to just be like super, super on the other end where I'm just like asking them to tell me what to do. I'm somewhere in the middle. So when I start a presentation to executives, I say, today we're going to talk about these things. I'm going to walk you through these three topics. This is why this presentation is important. This is what I'm going to cover. If you have any questions, let me know. And then we can go from there. So when I give them the heads up, they're like, if there's something not in alignment and they're saying like, oh, no, we don't want to focus on that. No. We want to talk about this. So then it's more about a collaboration at the end of the day. So if they say that, no, we don't want to look at the designs. We just want to know, like, have you made any updates to the app? Okay, I haven't made any updates to the app. So I'll say that. So literally it's all about just this alignment, so to speak. I would say it's just basically about this alignment that you have to have with them. So I tell them what I'm going to cover. I ask them questions like, do you have anything else you want me to cover? But I do take charge that way. Meaning like I do have some set agenda I'm going to cover. There's some set points I've figured out, some flow. I might say that, hey, if you have any questions, let me just walk through the prototype or the design and then you can ask me questions. So that way I do take charge because I don't want to be interrupted right away in the middle of everything. So that's basically what I tell them. And what I do is basically, this is the charge I take, but then I'm humble enough. I ask questions. Is there something else you want to see? What is something else you want to get insight into? So that's the humble part, which comes in, which is where I ask them questions like, is there something else you wanted to see? Is there something else I can do to answer your questions? So this way I cater to both. I do take charge by having some agenda, and then where I ask questions at the end to see if there's something else that could be answered too. Well, in the organization there, where a lot of companies may not just get design, or they're like, well, uh, what is the value of design? It is kind of a little bit hard because you also have to like do the role of being this promoter, like design promoter, where you have to like be like, hey, this is the value of design. This is what value it can bring. So there's definitely harder. But what I've found is basically that at the end of the day, it's on you. You decide basically how valuable design is in your company. And it's all again going back to the framing. So if you frame it effectively, meaning if you say that, hey, doing this design is going to bring this much profit, this much revenue, this much signups and stuff, even if somebody doesn't give a damn about design, they will pay attention. They will pay attention to what you're saying. Because even if they may not know much about design, they may not care. But when you say the right words that, hey, design can help you get here, design can help you, get to this role. So that is basically what I want to like emphasize here is that, boom, using the right framing, and then tying it to the person's goal, company goals, it gets them to understand. My point to you, all of you, is that a lot of designers feel that, oh, I'm going to do great work. My prototypes and wireframes will speak for itself. That's what they feel. That's not true. Your work doesn't speak for itself. You have to speak for your work. You have to be the one telling executives and stuff like, hey, look, I did this. I'm working on this project. They may not even know what you're working on. So as a lot of designers feel that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to like, I'll be up in the air and just I'm going to like, do good work and they will notice. It doesn't work that way. That's fantasy land. You cannot operate from that. You have to actively promote yourself in the company. You have to overcome the fear of presenting to executives, and you have to, by no matter what, right? Be comfortable talking about your work to large amount of people in the company. They have to know what you're working on. Do people in your company, whenever you work there, they have to know what is this person working on. If they don't know, that means that you're not promoting yourself enough. I know it sounds like, oh, like not design friendly and stuff and all that, but that's the reality. You want to get promoted, you want to grow up in the company, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter if basically nobody knows what you're working on. You're never presenting in front of executives. You're never in meetings with everyone, all the top level bosses. They need to know. So my callback to this is overcome the fear. Overcome the fear that you have, which is what's going to happen if I present to the executives. Overcome that fear, right? If, like I said, make sure with executives it's short and to the point. Let them know what they can expect in this presentation. Give them context of the project and explain to this how this ties to business value. That will help a lot. And then if you're nervous, present to other people. Like, I don't know why people feel that whenever you're presenting to something, one of the things I always do is, if I have to give a small presentation to the company, don't let that be the first time you present. Get your friends, get your best friend to be like, hey, I'm going to do this presentation at my company on Friday. Can I just quickly walk you through this presentation first? So this way, at least if there's some hiccups, you miss something, they'll give you some feedback. You'll at least have some prep before you move into the next one. Right? So think about those things, right? Think about those things before you directly just jump into just presenting to the executives. Now, something else I want to share with you is, so I do have an email course, a free email course. It's Level Up Your Design Career. And it's basically like 7 strategies you'll learn to level up your design career. So if you haven't, definitely enroll in the course. I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. So this way, you all can get more value. But this is the link to the course. And yeah, this is a link to the course. And I'm going to also keep the stream short. I'm not going to stretch it like super long. If I think that there's questions are answered and the point I've made is made, then it's awesome. I'm not going to like stretch it all the way because I want it to be short. Like I said, executive position is short and to the point, not just going on and on. I mean, I can talk for another, 30 minutes if I wanted to, but that's not the point. The point is to the point. If you made your point, enough. No need to like keep on going on and on and on. So that's something else I want to point out as well. All right. It depends, man. I always, when presenting in like, I always give credit to people. So when I'm presenting, like if multiple people worked on a project, I always say we. I always use the word we instead of being like, oh, I did this, because there's other team members you have, right? It's not that I'm trying to look weak, but I do want to give credit because I don't want to be like, oh, Jay Neal was the one who said like he did everything, but then I worked with 3 other designers and they never got their names heard in the executive presentation. That's just wrong. Then people never want to work with you. So I always give credit to my team members, everyone that I worked with. It's always nice because people do hear about it. And hey, you know what? Jay Neal gave me credit when he was presenting the executive. So now more people want to work with me because they're like, yeah, Jay Neal is not someone who's going to just steal our work, take the credit for himself, right? A lot of people have this fear. I don't want that. So I freely give credit when I'm presenting to executives. It's cool. I mean, like, at the end of the day, they know that I'm presenting. I've done some work, but then I'm also like, like presenting to like executives and then telling that, hey, if you work with me, I will give you credit. I'm not a person who's just going to steal all your work. So this way it builds very good credibility moving forward. And more people now want to collaborate with you, which is good because then you get to work on more projects and move up in the company. So that is something else I'll recommend to a lot of people. So with that, I don't think I have anything else to add for today. Just want to say once again, if you want to grow in your design career, don't expect your work to speak for itself. You have to speak for your work, which means you have to overcome the fear of presenting to executives. You have to be comfortable putting yourself out there. If you don't, it's not going to lead anywhere, right? You're just going to be stuck in that position. So overcome that fear, right? And if you haven't, like smash that subscribe button, subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot of these things that usually people don't talk about. I mean, I get it. It's important to learn the tutorials and intro to UI UX, but after that, what? That's where I want to step in and talk about these topics. So just want to tell everyone today that thank you so much for tuning in for today's session. And yes, I'm so glad that you found this relevant. I'm so glad. But yeah, just like you guys are the energy, you folks are the energy that like keep driving me to do this every Friday. So thank you so much. And like every time I do this stream and I see like the subscribe count grow, it just gives me more validation that, hey, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. So smash that subscribe button. And then I will see you on the next stream next Friday. Super excited for it as well. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today. Namaste.